I've noticed that there is definitely a crack in the dam here with the way that that Destiny has presented my positions with just straightforward lies. Anyway, I remember when you said I should vote for Vermin Supreme. No, I said vote for Trump. Get it right, guys. I said I love Trump. I'm a fan of Trump. Please vote for Donald Trump. Remember when I said those things? That's right. It's real. Speaking of things that are not real, I saw something that I found very interesting. I guess there's like a dude out there. Remember the guy who like Sex Pestany was like debating, duking out in the marketplace of ideas? He's some lawyer guy named Pisco or something. And remember when I was talking about that? Apparently, his community actually did something that's quite interesting. Instead of behaving like Destiny orbiters normally do, which is just like lie about my positions and then design an entire narrative off of this falsehood that they've created around a position that I do not hold, they actually went back to the original, okay? They actually went back to the original content and assessed it without Destiny filtering it. And I thought that that was really interesting. And I wanted to see if I can find it real quick. There's like, yeah, no, it's specifically about me and my advocacy for re-education camps, which is not even a thing that I have said. It's not even a thing that I've advocated for. But I found it quite interesting because I don't really look at the other side. I don't really broach into the dark side of the internet frequently. But it was interesting seeing people basically go back and be like, hey, I don't really like Hasan. I'm a liberal. But I've realized that a lot of these other like liberal content creators have just been straight up lying about Hasan's positions, which is like, yeah, that's exactly what's been going on in perpetuity. Pretty much for every single thing. One of the ways in which people do that is when they take something that I've said that is a joke and act as though I'm saying it sincerely. That's obviously a classic version of this. But what's crazy about it? Oh my God, they deleted it. You shouldn't trust DGG with how to interpret Hasan's ideology. Re-education camps is an example. Wait, what? Why did he delete it? This was like a long effort post that I was going to go through. Deleted because too much context. Context is not allowed. The account got deleted? How is that? What? This shit was there this morning. The account being deleted shouldn't delete the post. Yeah, what? Bro, this has 39 upvotes, dude. It doesn't make any sense why anyone would get so mad at it that they would brigade it to that degree where they would just like make the account delete the post and then delete account itself. Like, what are these guys doing? That's crazy. And if you actually look at the post itself, like, you will understand why it's so crazy that they deleted it. You shouldn't trust DGG, Destiny's community, with how to interpret Hasan's ideology. Re-education camps is an example. Part 1, re-education and Hasan's ideological beliefs. On yesterday's stream, someone named ZipZip called in and claimed that Hasan wants re-education camps and referred to his conversation with Ethan Klein about them. Hasan does not believe in having re-education camps, and this interpretation that he does is clearly bad faith when you listen to Hasan's fleshed out thoughts. Here are the clips. But I guess you can't even the clips now because because everything is gone. Ethan, if the will of the people is to go back to do a social democracy, is that something that a socialist country should move towards, or should there be resistance in the government to keep socialism? I think the resistance should be akin to how capitalist governments have resisted historically to any kind of socialist movement. Not to that same degree of violence, but yes, the solution to that would always be education and offering more re-education? Re-education, certainly. Yeah, I know that's a trigger word. Let's put them in camps. No, not like that. I know it's a trigger word because everyone goes, oh, re-education, what do you mean? Well, China does that. Are you talking about resident schools? Are you talking about Xinjiang? China has re-education camps. Yeah, 100%. They do it. They did it in Xinjiang, which is pretty good, right? No, I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't think it was good. And this is something I've openly criticized as well. That's not good. The massive surveillance apparatus they built in Xinjiang is not good. So what would be a good socialist re-education camp for a capitalist? I don't think it would be camps. It depends on the crime, right? Like, are people committing crimes at the behest of this? Because if there's a socialist state and someone is doing like white terror, let's say, or someone is doing South Korean style purges of communists, which has happened historically in every country that America is aligned with because they are anti-communist, where they launch military dictatorships, whether we like it or not, those things happen. So in a situation like that, I think if there's any terrorism happening, yes. If there's violence, that is obvious, says Ethan. I say, then yes, I do think there should be an enforcement mechanism. And in that enforcement mechanism, I think rehabilitation, which would include re-education as well, which would probably be a lot better than like a prison structure where they have slavery, like in the United States of America. He explicitly rejects the idea. This is the input from the person. He explicitly rejects the idea. What is this? Former orbiter alert. He covered the video and it has videos. Pisco stumps Destiny, leaves him coping in heated Twitter exchange. He explicitly rejects the idea of the re-education camps. In the way Hasan explains it, he talks about the education of socialism to be the same and how a capitalist country would teach or indoctrinate for capitalism. In the way he talks about re-education, he's talking about a rehabilitative process for people who commit violent crimes or ideologically motivated terrorism. For Hasan's alternative in practice, it already exists. There are several liberal democracies that run compulsory and voluntary de-radicalization programs for violent extremist offenders. Exactly. Which is ironic because, like, I have in the past jokingly said, like, we need re-education camps for these people when describing this process of, like, violent right-wing extremists that are committing acts of terror, right? Like crazy anti-vaxxers and like that. Zip Zip is one of the most deranged DGG foot soldiers. He even attended his court hearing, and I shit you not, made footnotes to share with the Epstein for the stream, completely presenting the victim as a liar. They are not normal and definitely take a parasocial to a whole new level. There are a lot of people like this. There are a lot of people like this in this community. It's like parasocial. It's like maxed out parasocialism with incredibly weird, just a incredibly, like, they do like psyops, you know what I mean? And they're in here right now probably too, but they just like, it's like a cult. It's like a sex cult where they do psyops at the behest of their favorite content creator. And here's some emails, an example template. It's preferred if you deviate from it as much as possible. Subject, urgent concern regarding upcoming appearance with Hasan Piker, and then a whole bunch of emails. Dear CNN, I'm writing to bring an urgent concern to your attention regarding an upcoming appearance scheduled with Hasan Piker. It has come to my attention that Hasan Piker is known for promoting anti-Semitic views and expressing support for terrorism-related activities. Oh, bro, please get a job, brother. Get a job, dog. That's crazy. Even if it doesn't work, even if it doesn't actually end up, working, it still doesn't matter. They still do it all the time. It's very, very weird. I think they use an example here to say, here's my support. Part 2, Destiny, thought crimes and Hasan derangement syndrome. I had actually looked into this a few days ago because I heard Not So Erudite talking about Hasan, and she repeated the same bad faith interpretation as well. So basically what happens is, I say something, Destiny cuts it in half, chops it up, immediately frames it in the most negative way possible, and extends it to the most like extreme hypothetical that I'm not advocating for, even if I'm directly knowing full well that someone is going to do a bad faith interpretation, even if I actually, ahead of the dishonest interpretation, literally spell out exactly what I want, right? Literally spell out exactly what I want and exactly what I think is the appropriate thing to do in this scenario. It doesn't even matter because he has a network of other content creators, including like these apolitical orbiters that also take that out of context snippet and just go along with that narrative and pump it to anyone that will listen. And then that's how you arrive at like all of these crazy conclusions that people have about my Asman, does anyone exactly the same thing with you? Yeah, there's a bunch of like relatively large content creators who also participate in this, which is, understandable why so many people have enmity towards someone like myself, because they just don't know what my worldview is. They've only seen my worldview through the most negative lens that they could possibly see. And they use Reddit for this propaganda. They use Reddit for this like this purpose, because Reddit is like so easily brigaded. And this effort post was yeeted. Like, look at this. This effort post with 39 upvotes was destroyed. The account that posted it was deleted, and the post itself was deleted by the person who made this post. How crazy is that? 29-minute in that YouTube vid was linked to see how D poisons the well and misconstrues your point. Let's take a look.
The will of the people is to go back to do more of a social democracy. Is that something that a socialist country should move towards, or should there be resistance in the government to keep socialism?
I think the resistance should be akin to how capitalist governments have resisted historically any kind of socialist movement, not to that same degree of violence, but I think that, yes, the solution to that would always be education and
re-education camps.
So,
offering.
dude, literally, he is immediately, the narrative is just like knee-jerk, pure knee-jerk. And now he's going to justify it for the rest of the clip. So the question was just, how would a socialist state enforce socialism? Yeah, how would it perpetuate socialism? How do you know it wouldn't just turn one generation ago capitalist and it all comes crumbling down? How would that be perpetuated? And someone's like, well, similar to capitalism, you know, education. Re-education? Why don't you give it a moment? Why don't you hear what he's saying first?
More
Re-education?
Or spaz?
re-education, certainly, yeah.
What a total spaz.
Somebody give me the clip of that one loser who's like, we would house our comrades in re-education camps. Somebody please give me the clip. Please give me the clip.
I know that that's like a
Let's put
trigger
them in
word.
camps.
No, not like that.
Like not only did he falsely present the argument that I was making, okay, by cutting the context in half, but then he just like follows up, I guess, by adding a total ridiculous thing that I'm not advocating for, by presenting an alternative, like a totally separate person, and be like, this is what he believes. No, I started off by saying, I started off by talking about the importance of rehabilitation. Why not ignore these morons? The reason why I wanted to cover this specifically is because I noticed that this is happening within Destiny's own orbit. And that's the only reason why I'm covering it. Because like these guys, including this guy who's covering it, including like this community that's covering this, are a lot of people that are in this other, like on the apolitical / liberal side of the internet. And this is the first time that I've seen people on that side be like, wait a minute, these motherfuckers have been lying to us all along about Hasan's positions. Like, it's not a who cares situation. I think it's important to understand this, and it's important to address this, especially because I have ignored it for years and years, and they haven't really gone away. They've literally designed an entire industry, an entire cottage industry about around just literally pumping out content that revolves around doing exactly what this microcosm is here, where I say something, people immediately interpret it in the most bad faith way possible, and then they just like pump out content surrounding this like bad faith misunderstanding.
Because they were such good people.
Isn't it interesting how he's all interested in like genocide and minorities?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what I don't understand is like I've never denied the Armenian genocide. Like I've never denied it, but it's the most common attack after the 9/11 stuff that people launch against me, where it's like, oh yeah, shut up, Armenian genocide, and I'm like, what? Like when have I denied it? Like I've never denied it. As a matter of fact, it was so routine when I first got on Twitch because of all the annoying little shitters that came in just to interrupt the broadcast, that we made like a ticker to figure out how many times in one broadcast where people would ask, and there's an automatic video that that people would be redirected to click on, where it says like the Armenian genocide happened. Me just saying that so that they would understand that I don't deny it.
And but the reason why I have always ignored it is because like there's not really much you can do about it. People are just always going to lie. And my expectation hopefully is people will go, wait a minute, is this true? And then come in here on their own and try to understand with a little bit of charitability, right? And it does happen. There are plenty of people in this community that probably originally started off with a false interpretation of what I believe, what I represent, and what my advocacy looks like, and then came in and watched my commentary personally and were like, okay, this was completely wrong. But there are plenty of people who don't take that leap, and there is a steady flow of circulating content out there that they don't ever have to take that leap, because even when I'm not streaming, they're like scouring the internet to find older clips of me to like recirculate, to be like, see, he's bad. Just remind yourself that he's bad. And it constantly feeds into that. It constantly feeds into this like, Hassan is bad because he's like a scary Marxist-Leninist who's going to kill you all. This is the first time I've seen one of these communities, like one of these like orbiter, like Destiny orbiter communities actually really look at the subject matter and be like, this was crazy. Like, this is not correct. They were just like lying about Hassan's positions and then making content off of those positions. And then that narrative becomes, for that side of the internet, that narrative is my positions. Like, no one is actually jumping. No one is actually leaping past that point and being like, what is this guy's actual opinion? They only see me from an incredibly negative lens. Why are there no ads on the stream? It's because my contract ended. Thank you for asking. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, and no one else. They still think you're pro-Russia. That's one of the most famous examples. I know. That's exactly what I mean. Like, any kind of nuance that I've actually offered in commentary that doesn't go along with like the immediate pro-America position, a lot of people will grab onto to be like, no, he loves the enemies. And it's usually very simplistic narratives too.
I know there's a
not the camps. Oh, no.
word, because everyone goes, oh, re-education. What do you mean? Like, immediately people think like, are you talking about like resident schools? Are you talking about the Xinjiang? Yeah, 100%. They do. They do it. They did it in Xinjiang, which I think
good, right?
No, I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't think it was good. This is something I have openly criticized as well. Like, that's not good. The massive surveillance apparatus they built in Xinjiang is not good.
So what would be good about a socialist re-education camp for capitalists?
It wouldn't necessarily. I don't think it'd be camps. I mean, it depends.
Well, it wouldn't be Oh my God.
Like, we already have a pre-existing system of rehabilitation that exists under liberal capitalist democracy. I think we should continue doing that. And also, this is complete alternative reality hypothesis here. We do not live in a socialist country. We do not live in a socialist utopia. We do not live in a global socialist organization of the economy.
I don't hate him. I don't hate Hassan.
What's wrong? You haven't even heard his answer yet. You haven't even heard what he said. Literally talking about rehabilitation for people who have committed crimes, like violent crimes and terrorism, ideological terrorism. What's the problem? That's what Hassan's position is here. We've just gone over that. No one's got any good pushback. Liberal Latino spazzed out at first, but then can't justify anything. So we've got no good pushback. It seems like Hassan is just asking for rehabilitation that includes like education about how to fit into that society with the ideology that is in the government. In much the same way that we try and de-radicalize people from Islamic extremism in many Western countries because that ideology does not fit with the ideology of the government. Why does he believe socialism will win with education, though? Seems very cultish. Well, everyone believes well, hopefully everyone believes their ideology would win with education, right? I believe my ideology would win with education, right? You just assume that most people are rational actors, and if they have access to all the information, then they'll come to the right decision, and you believe that your decision is the right decision. And as such, if everyone had perfect information and you're all going, we would all come to the same decision, right? Hopefully everyone thinks that. Unless your ideology relies on you tricking people. Which it might.
I hate her.
Whoops.
All of the mind-numbingly fans that can watch him squirm like this and not think that it's the most. You literally have.
And you see it like the way he's designing this conversation, which is not even like that contentious. It's just, this is back when Ethan and I were obviously cordial with one another. And this is supposed to be like a normal conversation. He's asking questions. There's a little bit of bad faith, but that happens in all back and forth debates. It's fine. But this is like the initial jump off point. And he just says like, I'm squirming. So then his parasocial fans also consider this to be squirming. And then they just like repeat it over and over again. And then ultimately the only thing that people remember from that, if they don't actually watch the original source material personally, and they only watch it from this like negative lens, that's the only thing they remember.
I said most people are rational.
Important caveat, they're not new fans. They're just tired of the obsession from D's community. These people have brain rotted themselves in the gibberish. The two orbiters think you simp for terrorists. Yeah, these guys are not fans of mine. I think they, especially when it comes to foreign policy, I suspect they still have firmly held commitments to like American imperialism and probably think I'm like a dangerous person on that in that regard. I think that it kind of feels like this is the first time I've encountered this person, but it makes me feel like these guys are basically realizing after years and years of this like negative framing, this incredibly negative framing, that maybe the negative framing wasn't correct. And I think part of that is because Destiny took such a strong stance that was pro-Israel doing a genocide.
Here's the one piece of advice I'll give you, okay? If you're joining the IDF, okay? Leave your cell phone at home and stop taking stupid videos, okay? Because everybody's with them, okay? And if you see a soldier, okay, going through a drawer, and listen, if you want to wear a dress and you think it's funny, just don't take a video picture of it, okay? Jesus. Okay, yeah.
And that the environment shifted in my direction as I knew it inevitably would when people realized the totality of this violence that Israel is pushing in Gaza. And we're here now. So I think a lot of people are basically reconsidering their stances because they were so heavily invested in whatever Sex Pestany was saying and just kind of regurgitating that this is a moment where it's like, well, maybe regurgitating Sex Pestany's stances are not the most appropriate way to go about this. Maybe we should reconsider the way we have broached the subject because, yeah. Anyway, I gotta grab this.
Most people are rational. On average, on balance, most people are rational. If you have enough people voting with access to all the information, the rational decision will win out. Okay. My ideology is that mass education is fundamentally impossible. We're doomed to a cycle of constant changing systems. Okay.
Then asking the most innocuous questions, and Hasan is acting like he's getting pressed in front of like a fucking Senate Judiciary Committee, and he's like under oath, and he's like committed like 50 million crimes. He's trying to hide from the United States. Like it's actually appalling.
It depends on crimes, right? Like, are people committing crimes at the behest of this? Because if there's a socialist state and someone is doing like white terror, let's say, or someone is doing South Korean style purges of communists, which has happened historically in every country that America.
Sorry, hold on.
It's my
we just
antibiotics.
skipped so much shit. Just stupid. My synergy froze. Oh, this is the
But rather than a.
This is the clip. Hold on. This is what they want to do.
Abandoning the diagnosed or untreated mental illness will be substantially lower. It's a sad fact that some violent or predatory individuals may never be capable of
Yeah, so he then moves on to like someone else's position instead of addressing mine after he's already like thoroughly dismissed it and poisoned the well about a position that I'm not advocating for. But by the time I actually describe myself, he can also say, oh, well, he's now hiding this position that I ascribed to him. So I say something and then I add additional qualifiers to it. But before the additional qualifiers come in, he already has like jammed that position. Okay, he's already jammed that position to me where he's like, Hasan wants death camps. Hasan wants re-education camps where people are being tortured for thought crimes, right? I literally am in the process of explaining that that's not what I'm advocating for at all. And it's actually something that we already have in liberal democracy. But by the time he lets the video play and his audience hears my full perspective, he's already decided that my position is actually that I want re-education camps where people are getting killed for thought crimes, and that I'm actually hiding my truth. I'm squirming. I'm hiding what my true perspective is. And then he moves on to something totally ridiculous, like totally separate. Like he does the thing. He slams that position and then he goes, see, this is what he wants by bringing up a totally separate YouTuber who I assume he's doing the similar thing to as well.
Back into society. But rather than abandoning these people, we must do our best to give them the best possible chance at recovery and reform with the hopes of eventually re-entering society. In situations where re-entry does seem possible, care must be taken to monitor and assist these reformed individuals to preempt relapse or deception and to ensure that the patient successfully merges back into wider society. Reactionaries and and counter-revolutionaries would be treated in a very similar manner. How we deal with former capitalists, fascists, and other such oppressors will be one of the great tests of anarchist society. Great care must be taken to treat them compassionately.
I'm not even an anarchist. He is, it seems, right? Like, not that it matters. I don't know what his like full worldview is, but like notice how he's not actually covering my position at this point. He's like completely moved on to someone entirely separate. There's a reason for that. He's doing that because he's just saying this is all the same. These are all bad opinions, and Hasan has these bad opinions. Do not look into his opinions on your own. Sex Pestany lost this shit on Pisco at least 10 to 15 times on a panel a couple of days ago. It was insane, all because Pisco is saying maybe Hasan isn't as bad as Trump or Hitler. Yeah, but I get why. I get why he has to be this bad faith, right? Because he's designed his entire persona around taking the opposing position to whatever I'm advocating for. So if the thing that I'm advocating for makes too much sense, then all of a sudden maybe he has to take a strong stance on something really terrible, which is precisely the reason why he has to make it seem as though I'm hiding what my actual opinion is. And one of the things that they always point to is the conversation that I had with the Deprogram boys, where he's like, Hasan hides his real opinions from the broader public. I don't. I actually am pretty straightforward with my perspective. As a matter of fact, perhaps too straightforward with my perspective. The difference, however, is that I change the way I message, even if my moral compass is still the same, depending on the audience. If I'm talking to a bunch of 75-year-olds, I'm not going to use, for example, memes that only 30-year-olds would understand or only 20-year-olds would understand. You straight up said you were a propagandist on Piers Morgan? Yes. And if you listen to the entire conversation with Piers Morgan, you would recognize that my position on that is that propaganda is a neutral term. Okay? I had a show on the Young Turks called Agitative Propaganda. Propaganda is a neutral term. What Piers Morgan is doing is propaganda. What the New York Times is doing is propaganda. Marketing is propaganda. PR is propaganda. Okay? Propaganda doesn't necessarily always have to be something evil and bad and nefarious and wrong. Okay? It doesn't mean that you're lying. As a matter of fact, what I say is I wear my positions on my sleeve. I think everyone has biases, right? Everyone has biases. And I think it's more honest to say what your biases are ahead of time rather than act as though you are actually examining something without any biases whatsoever, because you can't be devoid of bias. Yeah. Public service announcements telling people to wear seatbelts to help save their lives in case of an accident is technically propaganda. Exactly. What is this? The underage kid they're grooming over at the Diddy G Discord. Yeet already clipped and made a Twitter post about this discussion. I'm telling you, they're freaks. Yeah, no, I know. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like I said, that will always happen. But I'm happy to see that there are people out there, even in these communities, that were incredibly brain broken, okay, that are personally kind of seeing a way out of this cult, regardless of the endless faucet of negative commentary. And I'm using this as an example of like how some people have seen that this is technically not true. Like a lot of, if this is not true, what else has Sex Pestany said that's not true is the second question that people should have. If a lot of these people were to basically re-examine a lot of the positions that Sex Pestany has presented of mine, and then actually saw what my real positions are, they would realize that 99% of the time, okay, with the exception of that 1% where they just genuinely disagree with me, 99% of the time it's just like a total false framing.
And humanely, giving them every opportunity.
Is Hasan even an anarchist? I don't think this guy even...
Comrades, starting by treating them like any other comrade with special circumstances. Rather than ship deposed class enemies off,
this isn't representative of Hasan.
Revenge, they should be placed in reform centers where they are able to live in comfort and benefit from counseling and education, teaching them about the benefits of our new society. Some may never be willing to give up their abuses, and these diehard oppressors...
Only 27K viewers? You're really falling off, babe? I know, it's over. My career is over. It's done. I'm dying.
need to be secluded, perhaps indefinitely. But capitalists and reactionaries who demonstrate a willingness to re-enter society on equal footing should be given every opportunity to learn, grow, and eventually rejoin our community in peace.
Bro.
Which they could easily do if they wanted. The amount of misinfo surrounding your interview with a Houthi terrorist is insane. Seeing as he says he's not a Houthi in the first 2 minutes of the interview, not that it matters that he's not. I know. That was a classic example as well. That's another great example. Anyway,
somebody
let's continue.
link this to Ethan. That's what Hasan wants.
I just see it was happening the whole way through leftovers. The whole way through leftovers. This guy was desperate to see Ethan freak out on Hasan. Was desperate and was priming his audience heavily. And then the moment there were cracks showing, they infested his subreddit. They did. They infested Ethan's subreddit. It was blatant. Everyone could see the op. It's just so transparent. I don't know how anyone falls for this shit, man.
As well would
So
probably
crazy.
be a lot better than like,
Bro, shut the fuck up. You know you're wrong for that one. For what? See, this is what's so interesting to me about people that like pick on something that they pick on something that they personally think is like that they just decided is like not correct. And then they'll just like hammer it over and over again. Trolling hard, love you, man. I know. I get it. I understand, chatter. You're baiting. But it's very interesting. Wait, is this person reacting Pisco or someone else? No, this person I think was also like one of the slop-tuber commentary guys that was in Destiny's orbit, and he's reviewing an effort post that someone made in Pisco's community. Pisco is a lawyer who was also a collaborator of Destiny. I think they had like a podcast together or something. I don't know. But these guys are all like liberals of varying degrees, and some of them are finally realizing like maybe Destiny doesn't have like a discernible worldview, and it's just basically constantly presenting whatever I'm saying as like a horrifying alternative. And now that there is something that is significantly worse, like Donald Trump, they're starting to realize that like maybe this guy isn't serious or sincere about his worldview or about his politics, and it's just like spite-based for the most part, which it is, right? Because when you got a fascist administration ripping through the regulatory agencies, okay, and destroying America's already limited future, while simultaneously doing kidnapping operations all around cities, ripping families apart, and you got like a supposedly liberal content creator focusing all of his enmity not towards Donald Trump, and even sometimes agreeing with Donald Trump, like when it comes to foreign policy, like when it comes to bombing Iran, or when it comes to like defending Israel's genocide.
Honestly, I'm pro side. Like it sounds really shitty, but like I think that Israel should just draw its borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but like that's about where I'm at.
You just think the Palestinians should just pack up and Native American the out of there?
The problem is that it seems like there is a hugely general hostility to Jewish people across really the entire world, but definitely the Middle East. So the problem is that as you weaken Israel's like ability for Jewish people to live there, it seems like because there's a lot of different organizations across the Middle East that are highly invested in the destruction of Israel. So that's like a really rough thing too. So it seems like if Israel is forced to make concessions to Palestinians, it threatens Jewish people's ability to have a homeland. And
And presenting someone like myself at a time when people are desperately looking for someone to fight back, presenting someone like myself as the true evil in America is going to make a lot of liberals turn their heads and go, I don't think you're right on this. Are you a communist? How to do highlighted message? Are you a commie or just a Bernie bro? What do you mean socialist? Is it true you don't want people to own their own company? What are you saying? Like, this is the worst time to be a centrist liberal. Exactly. And I think like a lot of people are moving away from that, and they just want the Democrats to fight back. They want our representatives to actually represent our interests, to defend our communities. So when you got a guy like myself who has been saying that, who has been vindicated because of all of the warnings that I put out there about the Kamala campaign, about not doing anything about Israel, not actually counter messaging against the devastation that would be caused by mass deportations, like all of these things, and how public attitude would shift dramatically in the opposite direction once the mass deportations were actually implemented. When you have all that stuff, when you have all of that stuff unfolding in broad daylight, and you got Deborah's and Barbara's basically saying like, Hakeem Jeffries, you have to put your body on the line. No one wants centrist, wishy-washy, middle-of-the-road commentary. You just can't be neutral at a time like this. And if someone is like presenting a little bit of neutrality and simultaneously saying one of the few guys that's out there that's like actively trying to get the Democrats on board with actively fighting back against the Trump administration, me, is actually a villain in your worldview, then the reality is a lot of people are going to go, I don't think that it's appropriate that you are singling out a person who has literally been apprehended by Customs and Border Patrol for his criticisms of the Trump administration as the real villain here. I think the Trump administration is the real villain here. That's like, at a certain point, there's only so much propaganda that you can do until people go, I think there's a much bigger villain here, dog, and you're missing forest for the trees. Anyway, Destiny Part 2, Destiny, Thought Crimes, and Hassan Derangement Syndrome. I actually had looked this up a few days ago because I heard Not So Erudite, which is another one of Sex Destiny's like criminal associates. I think this is like the Ghislaine Maxwell of Destiny's community, right? Or is that her or is that a different person? Anyway, I don't know. Who like actively silenced the victims from coming out, tried to stop the victims from coming out against Destiny at the time. Anyway, she had a podcast with him as well, and I think she still does. I don't know. She repeated the same bad faith interpretation as well. This is what compelled me to search this up, as I have seen her having Hassan Derangement Syndrome. Then I felt compelled to make this post about DG because after hearing this yesterday, I looked for more clips with ChatGPT. The prompt was something like, Hasan Piker is accused of advocating for re-education camps. Can you find me clips of him doing this? The first 2 clips it gave me were literally Destiny clips of him going over this. To point out the bad faith in the Destiny clip, before Hassan has ever even given his answer, he's asking his chat for a clip of someone else talking about re-education. He then just asserts Hassan is lying, plays the clip of someone else talking about the re-education camps, and says this is what Hassan actually wants. The clip has someone basically saying people should be put into re-education camps for thought crimes that go against socialism. Hassan clearly does not advocate for that and rejects the idea of it as bad. He only advocated for re-education as a tool for de-radicalization of ideological violent criminals and terrorists, and to make it a part of the rehabilitation process as a replacement for American-style prisons. That's precisely my point, by the way. And I advocate for that within the framework of liberal capitalist democracy as well, for like white supremacist Nazi terrorists. I think it's an important facet of rehabilitation. Destiny even poisons the well for people who interpret differently what Hassan is saying by demeaning them as fans. I assume this is a substitute for the R word. I have never once in my life ever watched Hassan as a form of entertainment. Like 99% of my consumption of Hassan has been through either Destiny, Sitch, and Adam, and the other 1% has been fact-checking what other people say Hassan said. I don't really know that much more about Hassan's politics. In the past, I had looked up a few statements about Hassan that Dan Saltman said that also turned out to be mostly lies. Pisco has been calling out more of the lies that come from this community, mostly lies involving himself, and I hope he continues to do so in other ways that narratives are misconstrued from there. Part 3, Not So Erudite caught the Hassan Derangement Syndrome terminal. This is going to be slightly discombobulated because I want to finish this and I've spent too much time on it already. I wanted to include the clip of her making this claim to show that more people from DGG just believe whatever narrative Destiny spins up. And because she goes beyond just accusing him of advocating for re-education camps, she doesn't just think that Hassan wants them, but wants them for political speech he doesn't like, and claims he is similar to Trump in that way and would be just as authoritarian, if not more so, than the Orange Man. She also thinks Asmongold is better than Hassan as a content creator for young men. Not really important to my post, but shows the terminal nature of the Hassan Derangement Syndrome. Like, this is something that I have noticed as well. A lot of these like supposedly liberal content creators are shepherding their audience to find right-wing content creators like Asmongold to be more permissible and better overall than someone like myself, because they've designed their entire worldview around like saying Hassan, and Hassan is so scary. And that's the reason why you see so many of these like accounts that go along with these insane narratives. That's literally, I mean, that's just insane. That's just insane. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but like Asmongold is pro-Trump at its most base, right? At his most basic approach, he is pro-Trump. So if you're a liberal in this regard, why are you saying that he would be better overall than someone like myself for like de-radicalizing the youth? Yes, you're right, Hasan. It's a conspiracy. I mean, this basically lays it out. Do you have a disagreement with the way that this stuff is presented? Or do you just want to say, oh, it's just a conspiracy? I don't think it's like a conspiracy theory necessarily. I think there are ideological differences between someone like myself and someone like Sex Pastini, someone like all of his orbiters, for sure. I get that. I understand that. The problem is we're not actually having a conversation on ideological differences. We're having a conversation. We're not even having a conversation. It's just basically someone consistently going through meticulously through every single thing that I've said and misrepresenting it in the most, potentially the most negative way possible, while simultaneously presenting someone who is directly a right-wing, far-right individual as a better alternative. I mean, we saw this already, and the reason why we're having this conversation is because of this. It unfolded with this apparently massive debate amongst like the liberal content creators that debate everything, including whether or not I would be worse than Hitler or Donald Trump as the president. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this is a deeply unserious hypothetical to begin with. I'm a Twitch streamer. I think that there is like, I don't command that much influence or attention. But also, my worldview is directly outside of both of the major political parties, in a way where I would say Nick Fuentes and his views are not directly outside of either of the major political parties. Nick Fuentes is a lot closer to Donald Trump in his worldview, with one very big exception, which is, hating Jewish people and claiming that Jewish people are controlling American politics. But outside of that, they are fairly aligned on most of the issues, which is precisely the reason why he can, go and have dinner with Donald Trump alongside Kanye West, for example. Whereas my position is unfortunately not very close to the Democratic Party. I wish it was, and I wish the Democrats would actually advocate for more radical solutions, which aren't even radical at all. They're just better overall for the well-being of Americans, right? Free healthcare, free college education. These are not like crazy concepts. These are things that exist in other comparable OECD nations, right? I don't think that it's necessarily like a conspiracy theory. I think it's just like it's just a false presentation and like a very a not necessarily successful, but like successful in certain communities, a smear operation that has gone on for what, 5, 6, 7 years at this point. It is what it is. But now that I'm seeing like the damn crack on that side without any intervention from my end whatsoever, that's the reason why I wanted to highlight it, because I find it to be interesting that people that otherwise would never find a charitable interpretation on their own are basically seeing this reality. They're coming to this conclusion on their own. It's aligned interest in a neolib center-right community. It's not a conspiracy. It's people who are observing their aligned political perspective, losing all the power and influence it had maintained a stranglehold since the birth of third-way politics, which has demonstrated to every voter in the West that it is a failed method of political maintenance. Yes. Anyway, and for everything she says about how important it is to weed out leftists like Hasan because they don't advocate enough for voting for the right candidate, she actually doesn't even care who they vote for and tells voters they shouldn't be voting for people if they don't think they actually care about them. The last clip is to say, if she doesn't care who young men vote for, and she doesn't think you should vote for someone if you personally believe they don't care about you, then it is odd because Hasan and his audience would probably fall into the category of people whom she says she doesn't actually care about how they vote. Yet she is constantly criticizing them for it. The reason she gives, they didn't earn anyone's vote, is probably something Hasan also believes, and might even be further than what he says. Yes, I believe that the foundational principle of representative democracy is that our representatives are supposed to represent our interests. And democratic elections are supposed to be a pressure valve for all of the anxieties that people experience, all of the anger and resentment that people experience on a day-to-day basis. We have a lot of issues. Our politicians are supposed to at least advocate to solve those issues. When they don't do that and their expectation is like, shut the f up and vote because the other side is far worse, you are no longer doing democracy. You're doing something different, a duopoly. A counterexample and final thoughts. This is the only log or clip I could find of Hasan advocating for re-education camps. Offhand statements does not mean policy, and it seems to be an emotional, hyperbolic tweet, like DGG has never seen those before. If there's more than this, I could not find it. It might have you raise your eyebrow, but when he explains his thoughts on the matter, it is not the radical commie idea of re-education camps for speech or thought crimes. Rather, it is a much more nuanced and understanding way to allow violent extremists back into society so that they are at less risk of reoffending and hurting people. Pisco and the caller didn't get hung up on this point as he just conceded it. It wasn't that important, but in the future, I don't think taking DGG talking points over perceived enemies on face value is a good idea. Pisco did not need to give on this point at all and could have had the caller completely concede they were wrong when comparing Hasan to Charlie Kirk. Like what has been happening with himself lately, there are a lot of misconstrued narratives that come from that community that are built on lies or incredibly bad faith interpretations to the point it is nearly indistinguishable from a lie. Rather than evidence or truth, I guess my prescription is that in the future when DGGers make claims like this, Pisco should be more often skeptical and ask for clips or logs to prove what they're saying over their very outlandish statements like he has been doing for himself. Hasan is a tanky who dishonestly moderates his views after the fact to trick rubes like you into effort posting for him. It is as transparent as right-wing fascist dog whistling. You are just too stupid and ideologically captured to realize this. See, this is the other side of this story that I think is like kind of ridiculous because like this comes from the ideological disagreements. The most radical aspect of like left-leaning politics is literally abolishing the commodity form, okay? In a hypothetical future where you are a communist in a communist utopian society where there is no more need for money, okay, or borders, where the scarcity problem has been solved. Like this is not happening anytime soon. Okay, this is not happening anytime soon whatsoever. But that's the most extreme version of this. Whereas the most extreme version of right-wing ideology, fascism, is we've seen how fascism works. The most extreme version of right-wing ideology revolves around ethnic cleansing because there is something there that is intractable, that is just like, you are different. You are ideologically, or not ideologically, you are ethnically impure. It's purity politics. It's tribalist. Class politics is very different. The greatest example I can give you is like, for example, when you lose all your money because you failed and you bankrupted your business, you don't get killed in that process, okay? You just change your class. You have to go back and become a worker, like 99% of society already is. Whereas there is no alternative in the fascist dystopia, okay? That is a major difference. Let it go, dude. You're losing energy to this, and I'm not undermining the severity, nor the emotional impact, nor the cultural context as per anthropology, but it is not worth your time anymore. Stop arguing with NPC. I'm not. I rarely ever do this, especially lately. But the reason why, like I said, I wanted to cover this briefly, and you know, it's only been like almost an hour. The reason why I briefly cover this is because it seems like there is I've noticed that there is definitely a crack in the dam here with the way that Destiny has presented my positions with just straightforward lies. And this is not even necessarily drama. It's more so meta commentary on the way that this like extensive counter influencing operation has worked online for the past like 6-7 years at this point, and why there are so many random haters who have no idea what my actual positions are, because there is a dedicated audience to this that run around and go to like every single comment they can possibly find anywhere I'm mentioned to concern troll and to be like, well, Hasan is a terrorist, scary Diddy Epstein associate affiliate. He loves Donald Trump. He voted for Donald Trump, but also Donald Trump is good and much better than Hasan. Like it's all over the place. And if you're wondering where it comes from, they're going way harder on LSF now because Sex Destiny is getting pushback. There's been 3 to 4 2K, 4K comment threads on you in the last week, all brigaded. So they go on r/all. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. That's my point. And the less it works, didn't you advocate for Trump? No. You've been in here for 8 months. When have I advocated for Donald Trump? Are you insane? No. This is what I mean. There are so many people that just like we're literally having a conversation about what my actual positions are and how much there is there is an entire network of content creators that just like refuse to listen to what my actual positions are and instead just make up their own random straw man position. So it's like easier to destroy. And then also my own idiotic audience and my actual fans will turn around and go along with the meme so that like all of the onlookers right now that are completely that are just like first encountering my commentary will not understand that like my community is joking when they say, oh, well, you played the Yo voy a votar por Donald Trump song a bunch of times. Those people then go, well, his own long-term community fans are actually advocating and saying that he loves Donald Trump. These people consume your content through clips. Even if you had a brief 10-second aside in the middle of an unrelated topic, it counts to them. Yeah, that is what it is. Hasan is sometimes someone who likes to actually inform people despite their obviously biased slant towards them. He will still correct their misinformation and explain the original point. Correcting misinformation is Hasan's MO. This isn't drama. This is just literally what he does. Yeah. I obviously haven't like tailored my commentary to... I obviously haven't changed the way I do commentary. I still do sarcasm quite regularly. I still push for that shit all the time. I will still make jokes, even if it's a super serious topic. But ultimately, you know, it is what it is. Like, there's only so much I can do. I'm not going to change the way I talk. But I think these guys are basically showing their asses right now with how horny they are to do like content at a time when there is like an undeniable evil in charge. Yeah, I was listening to Kyle Kalinski's podcast from yesterday and he actually made a comment about this. He basically said a lot of them don't even know why they hate you. Exactly. That's why you see so many people, especially with like Israel, Palestine, for example. You'll see like the Palestinian flag in their bio be like, you know, Hasan, I actually hate him. And you're like, what? Why? And it's just because they literally saw a clip that someone else presented in this complete false way. Okay?